My name is Lucas Carter, and I never thought my own family would betray me like this. It started as a typical morning, coffee brewing, the sound of my parents arguing in the background. I had no idea that by the end of the day, everything I'd worked for would be turned against me. It all went down when my parents' shop burned to the ground, a fire that started in the back room. They claimed it was an accident, but I was suspicious from the start. The timing was too perfect. They had just increased the insurance on the property, and the shop had been struggling for months. I knew something was off when my girlfriend, Sophie, came over that night. I thought she would stand by me, but instead, she helped them frame me for an insurance scam. She told the investigators I had a motive, that I was secretly planning to sell the business. I was blindsided, but Sophie's betrayal was just the start. My own brother, Matt, was involved too. He stood by their lie, and I couldn't understand why. Then the investigators found the texts and camera footage from their phones. The truth came crashing down. The investigators presented everything, texts between Sophie and Matt discussing how to frame me, photos of them at the scene, and even the footage of my parents setting the fire. They were all complicit in the scam, orchestrating it from start to finish, thinking they could get away with it by pinning it on me. When I saw the footage, my stomach turned. It wasn't just a lie anymore. It was a carefully planned scheme to ruin me and take everything I had. They thought I wouldn't figure it out. But the worst part wasn't the theft or the betrayal. It was the realization that my own family had been planning to leave me with the consequences. The moment the truth came out, everything changed. My parents were arrested, and my brother, the one I had trusted the most, was in on it the entire time. He wanted the shop for himself, and Sophie, well, she wanted to run off with him. They'd been plotting behind my back, planning their future while destroying mine. Now they're facing charges: insurance fraud, arson, and conspiracy. They've lost everything they tried to steal, and I was left to pick up the pieces. But the damage is done. They'll never be the same to me again. Everything I thought I knew about family, trust, and love is gone. What comes next is out of my hands, but I'll be damned if I let them take what's mine. The days following the arrest felt like a blur. I was flooded with emotions I didn't know how to process: anger, disbelief, betrayal. I spent the first few days in shock, trying to wrap my head around the fact that my family had not only burned their shop but had plotted to send me to prison for their crimes. Sophie's face haunted me. I kept replaying the moments we'd shared, the trust one had placed in her. I had thought she was my partner, someone I could count on. But the truth was clear now. She had used me to secure her future with my brother, Matt. She had betrayed me for him, not just in business, but in the most personal way possible. I remember the first time I saw her after everything came to light. She came to my door, eyes filled with fake remorse. "Lucas, I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said, her voice trembling. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her she ruined everything. But instead, I just stared. My thoughts were a mess. She wasn't sorry. She was sorry she got caught. The hardest part was seeing my parents in cuffs, their faces twisted with shame. They had built their lives around lies, and now they were about to pay the price. The worst part? They didn't even seem to care. Their focus was on getting themselves out of trouble, and that's when I knew for sure. They had never seen me as family, just a pawn in their game. The trial began a month later, and the courtroom was packed. It wasn't just the investigators' evidence that stood against my parents and brother. It was the way they had manipulated everyone around them for years. Friends, family, business partners, all of them had been used like pawns. But the truth was finally laid bare, and now, everyone had to face the consequences of their actions. Matt sat across the courtroom from me, his eyes cold, like he was a stranger. He never once looked at me with guilt, remorse, or regret. It was like the brother I had grown up with no longer existed. Sophie sat beside him, her posture stiff, avoiding my gaze at all costs. The woman I had loved, the woman I had planned a future with, was now just another face in the crowd. I wanted to confront her, to ask her how she could do this, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. The prosecution played the footage from the cameras, the texts between them, their conversations about how they'd orchestrated the fire, the scam, and how they had plotted to frame me. My parents' eyes darted around the courtroom. never meeting mine, as if hoping the truth would somehow disappear. But it didn't. And they knew it. They were going down, and this time, I wasn't there to protect them. The days leading up to the sentencing felt like a twisted form of torture. I couldn't escape the constant reminder of what my family had done to me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces, their indifference to the destruction they had caused. My parents, who had once been the people I looked up to, were now unrecognizable. My brother, the person I'd always defended, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. The courtroom was filled with tension when the judge finally read their sentences. My parents were both given long prison terms for arson, fraud, and conspiracy. Matt received a lighter sentence, but the judge made it clear that he would never be able to escape the consequences of his actions. Sophie was given a probationary sentence, but I knew she would never truly pay for what she'd done. Her betrayal cut deeper than anything else. I felt a strange sense of finality as I sat there, listening to the words that sealed their fate. They had stolen everything from me, my trust, my family, my future. But in the end, they lost everything they tried to take from me. I wasn't the one going to prison. They were. As I left the courtroom that day, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in months, I felt free. It was over. Life after the trial was quieter, but not easier. The weight of betrayal still lingered, like a heavy cloud hanging over me, even though my family's fate had been sealed. I couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness, of losing not just my parents and brother, but the life I had once envisioned. For weeks, I kept to myself, processing everything in my own way. I focused on rebuilding, step by step. The shop was mine now, but the memories of what it had been before everything went wrong haunted me. I had to make it work. I couldn't let them take this too. I poured myself into the business, but the work felt empty without the family I thought I could rely on. Sophie eventually reached out, once again trying to justify her actions. She claimed she didn't mean to hurt me, that she thought she was doing what was best for her future. Her words felt hollow, like they always had. But I wasn't angry anymore. The rage had faded, replaced by a cold sense of finality. I stopped responding to her texts. I stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. Slowly, I started to realize that my life wasn't about fixing what was broken. It was about rebuilding it from scratch. And I was finally ready to do that on my own. Months passed, and slowly, I began to find my footing again. The business was steady, and I had started rebuilding a life that didn't revolve around my family. I had made new friends, built new routines, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was living for myself, not for anyone else's expectations or lies. But even in the midst of progress, I couldn't ignore the emptiness that still lingered. The people who had once been my foundation were now lost to me. My parents, locked away in prison for their greed, had become strangers. My brother, the one I had always protected, was serving his own sentence for his role in the scam, and yet there was no remorse in his eyes, no sense of guilt for what he'd done to me. I didn't need them anymore. I'd learned that much. But sometimes, late at night, I thought of how everything had started, how I had trusted them, loved them, fought for them, and how they had thrown it all away without a second thought. But now, I was stronger. I had built something for myself. And no matter what they had tried to take from me, they could never take that. I had my life back, and that was enough. The phone call came unexpectedly, months after everything had settled. It was from the prison. My mother had requested to speak with me. At first, I hesitated. I had no intention of forgiving them, no interest in reopening the wounds they had carved so deeply into my life. But something inside me stirred, an old part of me that still wondered if there could be reconciliation, or if I was simply holding on to a dream of family that no longer existed. I agreed to the call. Her voice was weak, tired. There was no anger in it, no deflection. Only a quiet admission of defeat. "I'm sorry, Lucas," she said, her voice cracking. "I know it doesn't fix anything, but I need you to hear it. I was wrong." I didn't speak for a long time. The silence was thick, heavy with everything that had gone unsaid. My mother's betrayal, my father's indifference, Matt's coldness. It all came rushing back. But even through the pain, I realized something. This apology, though too late, was theirs to give. It was not for me to fix. "I've moved on," I finally said. "And so have you." The line went quiet again. We said our goodbyes, and as I hung up, a strange peace washed over me. They were still in prison, still facing the consequences of their actions. But I was free, truly free, and that was enough.